Hey, my name is Simone and I'm going to share a review of the pens that I had inked during the month of July. Before we dive in, I would like to make a little announcement, housekeeping announcement. I have previously talked at length about hosting an ink swap in August of 2023. And I just want to let you know that I have to postpone that to the spring of 2024. The reason for that is that every time I am thinking about that ink swap, I have lots of anxiety involved. And I really don't know why, because when I think about it, I feel like it shouldn't be that hard. But every time I think about it, I get anxious and I have this weird feeling in my stomach. And so my responsible part of my brain decided executively that I need to postpone. I said it. I don't really know why I'm feeling so anxious about the swap. It doesn't really make sense, but this is how it is. And so I'm just going to take a step back and try again in the spring and see if then I feel differently about it and I will be able to host it. All right, let's start the review. As you can see, I have my... I have an affiliate code with Atlas Stationers. It's Simone10. And I also have an affiliate code with, well, actually, it's not an affiliate code. It is a code for you for 10% off, but it's not, I do not get any kickback. Vanessa. I think their website is 1938. And 10% off. As with Atlas, there is some exclusions, and that one is Simone 23. So if you're planning on purchasing ink, because they have the biggest portfolio of inks on their site, then why don't you use that code and save some money? I have already filmed this video. I did not like how it turned out, so I'm going to do it again. I am going to approach it a little bit differently, but I need my paper for the review. I have the book where I already filmed it here, but it just wasn't doing it for me, so I am here again. Now, these are the pens that are going to be uninked. I am going to talk first about the pens that I had inked previously that I moved through from June. So those are, well, this one wasn't in there in the beginning of June, but I think these are those. This one is the Jinhao X159 in black with a fine nib. This converter was 1/3 filled. As you can clearly see, there is no converter inside. I have moved to a location where humidity is much, well, there is not a lot of humidity. It is very dry here. And so what happened with this one was that it was basically empty when I wanted to write with it. I guess that this cap doesn't seal too well, and so this is why that was able to happen. When I wrote with it, and I will add a little snippet so you can see, it felt really gunky, and the pen and converter was dry before I was able to journal with it again. The liquid seemed to have been disappearing, so I wasn't able to use this at all. I did purchase a bottle of the Dominant Industry Earl Grey tea that was inside here, and I will be able to use that ink again. So I'm not super upset about the fact that it's not going to that I didn't end up using it in July. The next pen I have here is the Pilot Custom 823. It was inked with Kobe number 34 Surakuen Green Tea. There's still a tiny bit left, and I think I'm going to journal with this today, and then I'm going to empty it out. This is what the ink looks like. It looks very much the same as it did when I inked it up. Maybe it's a little bit darker. I don't know how well this seals. Sealing pens, cap sealing pens, that doesn't make sense. Pens where the cap seals very tightly seems to be an important thing here where it is so dry. This is the Pilot Custom 823, and this one this month I really loved. The interesting thing about this is that I said in June that this nib was super soft and I didn't enjoy using it because it was so soft. None of this was felt during July. I loved writing with it. Perfect. It wasn't too bouncy. It always, every time I use this pen, it feels like it was made to be in my hand, and I always feel comfortable. I don't have any issues with some pens. I cannot seem to get my handwriting to be consistently nice, leaning in the same direction, you know, like it looks cohesive. With this pen, this always happens. Then this one is also, so this one I want to journal with today, but this one is almost empty. This is the Opus 88 with a medium nib. I must have expressed myself weirdly in the last video. There were several people who commented that this is not a Japanese pen. I am aware Opus 88 is from Taiwan. The filling mechanism, however, that is called a Japanese eyedropper pen, and that is what I was referring to in the other video. So if you're it is a specific way of eyedroppering. If I did some research where you have a piston and you are able to use that piston to seal the chamber here from the feed and nib. And so the ink is basically locked in here. This was the Opus 88. And then this one was okay. When I wrote with it, sometimes the nib would feel like it was going to run out of ink. And then suddenly it wrote really juicy, and I didn't really know why that happened. Maybe, again, there was water evaporating from this pen and left a mixture of dye and ink that was just not right anymore. I'm not sure. The ink that was in here was Rouge Grenade, and I really enjoyed that. If you want to see more about the ink explorations, I highly recommend that video, the June currently inked review. This is where I shared all the inks that I explored in June. Then I have the Montegrappa Elmo in the marshmallow design. It always feels good in my hand. This is one of those pens. Well, I used it earlier, so you can't really, it's not as noticeable. This is, it's still a heart, but when you start writing with this, it is darker than usual. than the ink actually is. So this always, when you start writing with it, is much darker than what the ink color actually is. This is a sign for me that also this cap doesn't seal as well as other pens. It wasn't a problem in the sense that it didn't start writing. Like I didn't have any hard starts. I didn't have any hard starts with any of the pens except for one. And I will talk about that later. So this was a good pen, except for the fact that I had much darker ink in the beginning of the writing session than when I ended it. And then this last one is also written dry. I dipped it earlier. This is the Bennu Ambrosia with a fine nib. It was inked. This ink in here was Pelikan Edelstein Apatite. And there was confusion about the way I pronounced apatite. If I was regarding the word Pelikan and Edelstein, which Pelikan is a German company and Edelstein is a German word, as German, then the gemstone apatite is not spelled and written appetite. It is spelled A-P-A-T-I-T and it is pronounced apatite, which is weird. I'm wondering why Pelikan does that. But then I did some research and they do this with all their Edelstein inks. They're all, the first two words are German and the gemstone name is spelled in English. All right, so this was inked with Diamine Festive Joy. It was an ink vent ink from 2021, and this pen really grew on me. The fact that this fine nib is super fine but still so extremely juicy just made me fall in love with it more. The ink wasn't it's an ink that I can totally and absolutely pass on to someone else. It's purple. And that's all there is to say about this ink. I am loving inks where I have some tension, where it's shading. Yeah, I think the shading is what really draws me into most of the inks. This doesn't shade at all, or it doesn't seem to shade in this pen. I'm still... I already had it inked in other pens, and I don't know how I felt about it then. I will have to investigate some more. I do have enough ink left, so I can totally do that. There is two more pens that I'm going to unink and clean. So I'm going to talk about those next, and then I'll tell you which pens I'm going to move on and why. So this pen is the Lamy Safari in yellow. This, I talked about this before, is my oldest pen. And I really enjoyed it when I used it in high school or gymnasium. And it did not live really up to that same feeling when I used it here, with the inks that I put in here. This time around, it did. So that was amazing. I really loved this pen and ink combination for that reason alone. However, this ink, as you just saw, goes down quite red, maroon, red-brown, but then it dries to this darker color, and there is some green hues in here, and the way it dries down reminds me absolutely of blood. And I don't have a problem with blood. I can see my own blood, I can see other people's blood, but this specific hue just did not vibe at all. And so even though I only wrote 1/4 of the converter, I'm going to unink this ink. I'm going to unink this pen. I'm going to dispose of this ink. This is definitely not for me. This was part of a ink flight, and the color of this ink is called Van Diemen's Mandarin Duck Wing. There's only a 2 milliliter sample, so it's not going to be wasted. There is like this sliver of ink left, and it's empty, and it's okay. I can move on and not feel, I don't even have to pass on this ink color. This was not for me. Now, this was an ink that I explored a little more. So let me show you what it looks like in my ink exploration notebook. It looks much nicer here with these reds here, but this is not what I saw or what I see when I write with it. I'm hopeful that this comes across on camera. Nope, not for me. It doesn't seem to be for me in any of the let me check where I have my card, because then I can show this to you also in my color family book, and it's on page number 16. These are all the dark maroon reds colors that I have in my stash, and this is Mandarin Duck Wing. There's others that I can use and without missing out on that color. It does look different on here. It does look different here, but in this pen, on this paper, it always looked like this. And I really don't think this has anything to do with the way I cleaned this pen previously. It's just not for me. Next, the water test showed that it is rather doesn't resist water. When I do my chromatography strips, I usually dip them in for 1 minute, or I used to, let me put it this way. This is what I made at the old place. This whole thing, besides the ones that I added since I moved here, were all dipped at the old place, where humidity is about 30 to 50% more than here. I dip it, I put a strip of ink at the bottom. This is upside down, unfortunately. Dipped it in for 1 minute, took it out, hung it up, and then usually, because the strip is still wet, the ink and water still travels for a little bit before then it starts drying up. 1 minute, 1 minute. As you can clearly see, because it's so dry here, after the second one, I think I adjusted my time to 1 minute and 20 seconds. And I think that is closer to what I did at home. So I can just give you, somebody asked me to film a video on my chromatography, and I will do that. But I noticed that the time that you submerge your strip into water is different, should be different depending on how humid the climate is where you are. That's just a side note. All right, let's move on to the next pen, which is this one. This is the Pilot Custom A23. What am I saying? This is not true. This is the Pilot Custom 74. OT Custom 74. And this one is double heart. This was my very first gold nipped pen, and as with the Lamy Safari, when I write with this, it feels like coming home. I really enjoy this pen, and I loved the ink. Unfortunately, again, this is one of those inks where I would love to have a 4 milliliter sample instead of only 2. This came in an ink flight box as well. This is all the ink that I have. There is a tiny sliver left. I would be able to put it here, but then it's also a shimmer ink. So then I would probably suck in all of the shimmer particles if I filled this with a syringe, and that's just not worth it. So if you have Wearingeul Wayfarer and you would love to share another sample with me, I would be so happy. I don't think I want a bottle of it because I just purchased several bottles of ink and I want to get through those first. This is the perfect teal. I don't know, is this an aqua color? What's the difference between those two names? Let me check the camera. Yeah, this looks a lot greener than this one. But are both of those teals? This one just leans greener than this one? Let me know in the description box below. Ever since I started exploring inks and colors, I have been absolutely confused on the names of color. And I look at them, I can tell you I like this color. I can dissect it on a chromatography strip, and I see yellow and I see blue and green, and I still don't know the name for this specific color. There is purple shimmer in this ink, and if I would have to choose between a bottle of Emeraude de Chevroir by Jacques Urbain or Wearingeul Wayfarer, I would absolutely always go for this one because this is just perfection. I love that even though it's such a dark ink, it shades nicely. Look at this. Look at this. There's a little bit of gray in the color here. I said there's blue, there's green, there's cyan, I think, up here, and then there's some grass green down here. Doesn't really withstand water. It just shades so lovely, and it's still very legible. Sometimes when it's too much shade or there's too much going in the color, it starts to get borderline illegible, but this one is great. I have, where is it? Right here. This is on page 5. I have this on page 5. And these are all these inks that I love so much. And there's definitely similarities in many of those. You have very similar chromatography strips that just differ in the details. So I can explore more. That's why I don't really think I want to buy a bottle of this, because I have so many of these inks. This one I have a bottle of. This one I have a bottle of. These both lean very green. This one doesn't. So maybe that's a reason why I should get this as a bottle. I don't know. You tell me. There's that. This is empty. I'm going to clean this out. I'm thinking of using just regular cartridges and cleaning those instead of using this converter. This is so tiny. It never fills if you use it. And the Con 70 is also doesn't live up to this pen at all. It's like, what a shame to use that converter in this pen. So these are all pens that are either written dry or the ink just doesn't work. So these will be cleaned after today's video. Then I have these left. So this was, or still is, the TWSBI. And just a personal information, if you didn't know, I did not. I sure did not. I was told last week that you only turn this cap until there is some resistance. Do not turn it anymore. This does not necessarily line up with the nib at all. I thought it would, and so I over tightened. Oh my gosh, is there one here too? I hope not. I over tightened my black TWSBI Mini so many times that I have all cracks back here. Let me show you if I can find it. Let me come closer. I hope you can see it. There's so many cracks. I can't even really screw on the cap anymore. I have written to TWSBI. They are going to send me a replacement body for this pen, but man, that was user error. And if you didn't know that, then make sure you don't over tighten it because it can crack. So look at this. I had this open for so long. Let me point out what happens here. This goes down punchy as heck. Like, this is a barely tolerable color, and I love it for that. Look at it and wait. TWSBI. Nee, da kommt noch ein S dazwischen. Hier, so. Wow, this is amazing. TWSBI Mini. AL. With a broad nib. As you can see, the grip section is transparent, even though this is the grape AL. I don't enjoy holding this pen. There is a difference in how this pen feels, in how my hand fatigues with the aluminum grip compared to this transparent grip. You can really easily swap these out. Let me check for a nib. It's right here. So if you imagine this is the front of here, you just unscrew this whole section and then you can just take these two things apart. It has notches where it goes in deeper, so you just turn it until it goes down and then you screw it on. And since I have spare mini nibs, I just used one of the clear sections for this. Now this pen works really great. It is definitely one of the favorite pens in July. Look how this dried. Isn't this amazing? Look how it goes down. It is still legible. In dim light, this is just barely legible. So this, if you always write in dim light, maybe you shouldn't use this ink. But Color Traveler Sanuki Urondashi Gold is my favorite ink right now. It dries down to this amazing golden color. There is some shading going on. There is shimmer in this pen and in this ink, but somehow I never see shimmer in the writing. Let me show you the shimmer in this swatch. How amazing is this? Even though I don't see it in the writing, just knowing that a swatch of this ink looks like this makes this even better. So, yeah, if you spill water on your writing, then there's nothing left. It looks great in any of the nib widths that I used. I think it's better in the finer nibs just because it's more legible. There is not, look at how, this is what I was talking about earlier with the Wearing Ghoul Wayfarer. Here in this bottom line with the 1.0 stub, there's so much going on in the letters that it's really hard to read the word. So yes, that's that. This one is still full enough so that it's going to stay on. That's why it's not over there. Then next pen, very similar ink, is the Pilot E95S. This was filled with Robert Oster African Gold, and can you see that? It feels like the ink is not able to move through the feed as fast as I need it up here at the tip of the nib. So I'm not sure why this is happening, but what I can show you here is, first of all, I don't even know how much ink is left in there because this converter sinks in all the way. Look how this looks. Why is there so much ink in here? Is this not feeding the ink in here? I am definitely going to switch this out and put in a regular standard cartridge that is filled with this ink, just to see if it makes a difference in the writing experience. There's not a lot of ink left in here. Yeah, the question is, am I going to do this or am I not? Ooh, look, there's so much ink on the outside. Yeah, and there's the question is this video better than the other one? We don't know, because you never get to see the other one. Let me grab a towel, which I don't. Only have this lovely towel that is full of history. Oh, I love this ink splotch. This will make a great photo. Well, I do have a photo already, so that's good. Let me show you what I explored. It is a lovely color. That's sure. Maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I always have the feeling that Robert Oster inks in the pens that I put them in are dry. So maybe this is just what happens because I already think this is going to happen and it is dry, or I'm just making it to be that way, and that's just how this ink is in general. I'm not sure. I love these really dark haloing bits around here. They are visible in the writing here, up here. There's some green here, which I don't feel, I feel like sometimes I'm very green leaning inks just don't vibe with me, but this one does. Again, your writing is gone when there is a water accident, and I think it looks really great in all of the nib sizes. So yeah, that's Robert Oster African Gold. I'm not, maybe this will appear in my August Currently Inked, or once I'm done with uninking and inking, this might be empty. We don't know. And I am getting a new pen in the mail, so maybe I'm just going to swap this out. We don't know yet, or you don't really have anything to say. This pen is the Pilot Vanishing Point with a medium nib. The first thing I can tell you is that I finally feel like this pen is comfortable in my hand. It took me a very long time to get used to holding this pen in my hand without feeling like I was doing, like it was an obstacle instead of a writing instrument. And so now this is what makes this pen really great right now. This is what makes writing with this really great. I try to get my fingers right here, and then I feel really good. Pilot Vanishing. So I have had the problem in the past that most of the inks that I put in here were way too dry, and I did not enjoy the writing experience. Now with Pilot Hiroshi Zuku Yamabudo, it almost feels too wet. The ink is gushing out. On papers that are not Tomoe River paper, it bleeds through, which I haven't had since I put this ink in this pen. And I'm not really sure what to make of this. So is this just a normal pen now and I am enjoying it in any way, shape, or form? Maybe I should be more adventurous again and put other inks but Pilot Iroshizuku inks in here. I don't know. This is the ink exploration, and it is very magenta with a gold sheen. And I really love magenta inks. These colors are amazing. I have a lot of them. Color family. Oh, I didn't show you the color families for the other ones. Do you want to see those? We can do that when I'm done with the magenta, and then I'll show you the other ones. I have a lot of those. And the Yamabudo so far is my least favorite of them all. I can't really pinpoint why that is. Because, for instance, Sailor Manu Akibi is very, very similar. This has a green sheen, this has a gold sheen. Maybe because of the gold sheen, it looks more red. But I cannot even remember what the Akibi looks like. As we can see, I did an ink exploration on this, and so maybe I can show you. This is Malayan Apples, also has a green sheen, 119. That's totally not true. What? Well, 19. So we need to cross this out. So why do I feel like I like this ink better than this one? I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I had this longer. I'm not sure either. I think I already found all the inks that I want to use in August, but I think this one needs to be in a pen really, really soon so I can compare. All right, that was the Vanishing Point with the Pilot Iroshizuku Yamabudo. There is half an ink cartridge left, and I will move this on and see how I like it in August. This is the next pen and the second to last pen that I'm showing you. I was going to show you these first, right? Well, let's move this aside and go talk about this first. This is the Franklin-Christoph Model 2. This is a one-of-a-kind that I purchased at the San Francisco Pen Show. I have a medium steel nib on here. The ink inside is Troublemaker España Boulevard. Franklin-Christoph. And what I noticed about this pen was that the cap doesn't seal well at all. Every time I used it, the ink did not look anything that came out of the pen, did not look anything like the ink that I swatched, the ink that I tested and tried out, which was kind of disappointing because that was the first thing that I noticed. I really enjoy using this pen. I really enjoy writing with it. I did not realize that this ink was a shimmer ink until I refilled it. I only filled it up halfway because I wasn't sure if I would like this ink. Turns out I do, and until I used it on Aerofoil paper. This looks very, and you can also see it on the swatch card. There is some reddish hues here. I'm not sure if I said it on this video or on the other video, but I'm gonna just repeat it. Reds that lean green and greens that lean red or they just do not really fill my bucket. And so yeah, it looks reddish on here. It looks more blue leaning everywhere else I used it, and I really enjoyed that ink. But on the Aerofoil paper, it was just so predominantly reddish green that I didn't like it. So it's obviously then a very interesting ink because it looks different on all the different papers. It's very light. I did not see the shimmer in the writing. I think look at the way this looks here and the way it looks here, it is really hard to figure out if this is just dark because it dried up, or if that is the line, the darkness of the ink with the nib. I filmed a video just earlier with this pen, so obviously it's not as dark as it usually is, but that's something that I just don't really like. And so I'm not going to get rid of this pen anytime soon, but this is definitely something that I'm considering when I'm purchasing pens in the future, is how well does the cap seal for the humidity that I live in. Maybe that's something that you need to consider too. Maybe that is the problem why your pens don't write, because it's so super dry. You never know. So then, this is my Esterbrook SD in sea glass. This one had a medium nib, still has. Why do I always say had? It still has. Brook SD. This ink is the ink that is furthest out of my comfort zone. This is an ink sample like this one and this one that I received in a meetup just in the beginning of June when I met up with my friends Mara and Amy. It is called Diamine Hell Spells, and I was super drawn to this ink when I swatched it. And let me check where here, because it has this really, really great dark teal, almost blue color. However, this is not at all what you see when you use this in a medium nib. I did try it with the other nibs. These are all the, what are those called? Sailor Hokuro pens, dip pens. This is the Fude nib, and look at how this looks. Since it's not an ink flight sample, I have more than 2 milliliters, and I can explore with different nib widths. If I would use this in a different pen, I would feel differently about it. But here in this medium nib, this is just all red sheen on a black ink, which is not even true. This is a really, really dark blue, teal blue. You can see this here in the swatch. And I love this color. Without the sheen, this would be the bomb. You can see in the chromatography that there's gray, then there's this dark green, and then there's really dark blue on top, indigo maybe even. This is one of the only inks where you would probably be able to decipher what you have written with the water test. And even with a 1.0 stub, there still is some color. There's a lot of sheen, obviously, but there's also color. So I'm curious to experiment with this some more. Which brings me to something that I haven't voiced really yet, but sometimes, especially when I'm talking about these reviews and what I would love to explore, I feel like I need to stop acquiring inks, because I cannot explore as much as I want to, and I don't know how to match all of that up. So I'm really looking forward to 30 inks, 30 days in September, because that might be something that I would do. So I was going to show you this and this in the Color Family swatch book. So I have this on the yellow ochres. The African gold is right here. It is very similar to homemade tortillas. Homemade tortillas still has a little bit of gray here. It also looks a little bit darker. But there are, again, this is a color that I'm very drawn to, and so it is still legible no, that's not what I wanted to say. So now this video is 45 minutes. Wow, wow. Not faster. And then the last one that I wanted to show you is Sanuki Urondashi. I put it on the light greens because I couldn't decide. It's definitely not the right place. Doesn't even look close to any of these, but then I put it to the yellow and it also doesn't really look close to any of the ones that I considered yellows. So this is it. I'm moving on all of those for now. They might be empty before the end of August or even not even make it to August. Watch out for my August currently inked video. I hope to see you soon. Until then, bye.